We are live on a Thursday evening from the Truth Proof offices, and welcome, Paul.
Yeah, welcome, Les. And not exactly an office that I'm in at the moment, people, but we are live. Have you had a good week?
Yeah, not so bad. Yeah, we've as you know, my primary job is really editing a lot of Truth Proof videos. So you've sent some more along, which we're ploughing through for us to go to put those out on shorts. So yeah.
Well, that's kind of off the cuff live stream that we did in week. You know,
yeah,
we did
sure, the evening, yeah.
Yeah, we did say that we'd do a little bit on Ben McDo, thanks to Chris Meek, the Scottish researcher, who's absolutely first class. And he sent us a little bit of information, so we're going to put that together, hopefully for Saturday for you guys. But we've got a great guest lined up tonight in the form of Phil Kotval. Let's just get this right. Kotval. I need to say it right. I only want to say it once. But no, really good, interesting guy. I hope we're going to enjoy speaking with him. And we've got a few people in chat, Les, already. I think
let's have a look. See if we can do some names on there.
So we've got Jojo. So you've been in early doors, and thanks, Jojo. And we've got Alison doing moderating. Ginge, Stargazer, Steph. Saw Linny in earlier. I can't see him now. Hezo, Rebecca King, Bren. Let's have a look. Dragonborn, loved it to see you. Jonathan Chapman, Tom Waters, good to see you, Tom. Bridget Vandenbosch, Martin Abbas, Mark Rhodes. It'd be interesting to speak to you, Mark, at some point in the next few days. There was something strange happened on Cliff Tops with one of our team other days, very similar to how you felt when you came up there. John Paul Body, Al Durham, Gordon and Julie. Oh, I'd love it to see you. Steve Walsh. And, you know, it's great because I don't mean all of them. There's 111 people in here, but a lot of these people we've actually met and had conversations face to face with. Chris Wright. I hope, Chris.
Yeah.
We went to Howard Dale in week, me and Chris, and we did a bit of filming. So we'll be Mary Sinclair. I know her. I've only been married to her for 40 years. So I didn't think I'd be seeing your name tonight. Let's have a look. Rachel Martell, Mr. Big Gamings. I better say that. Good to see you, Mary. Little Steve Tees, Deb Shaw. Gonna have to stop.
Okay. So if you've got any questions from Paul or his guest tonight, please put them in caps, and I'll send them to myself, and we can read them out later on. Around about 8 o'clock time, we usually get some questions out. So without further ado, because we want to get on with the show and give our guests the most amount of time available, we'll bring our guest on and welcome Phil.
How are you doing, Phil?
Hi, how you doing, Paul? Hi, Les.
It's good to see you, mate.
It's good to be here. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Just at this juncture, I'll disappear and I'll be back later with if there's any questions for you guys. Okay?
No worries, Les. So, Phil Kotval, researcher, experiencer. I think experiencer comes first before the research, really, Phil, didn't it?
Of course, yes. I wouldn't have given this a second thought if it hadn't been for the experience. Yeah,
experience is the one that sticks out. I mean, I want to wind back to childhood first, really. So I don't want to throw you in with something that might have happened in recent times. But how did you become involved in this?
It really became involved with me, to be honest, Paul. It's something that happened to me. I didn't ask for it, like a lot of people don't ask for it. It did very much happen with quite a bang. Literally, the first time was if I can start one of the first times at the beginning. I lived in a house with my mum and dad and my sister. My sister was older than me by 6 years, and it was a corner house in Greenford, near Ealing, Wembley, around that area, in the Middlesex area. And I used to, as a kid, I was a bit of a bugger, to be honest, as most kids. And I can remember one particular evening, I used to thought to myself, well, I'll go downstairs, and this is at bedtime, and I meant to be in bed. Well, I wasn't. I went downstairs, and I was careful not to tread on the squeaky boards on the way down. And as I was halfway down, I heard a voice in my ear. A lot of people say they hear it in the head. I actually heard it in my ear, And once again, it was a voice said, beware. I, at that point, turned around to look up the stairs, and up the stairs, it bent round to the corner to the right-hand side. To the left was a large glass landing window. And the glass landing window just got completely demolished and stoved in. What stoved it in was a street sign. Now, back in the day, in the 1970s, this was. The street signs were the white bordered ones. So it had white background, black border, and black writing. But they were extremely heavy. I think they were cast iron and usually bolted to concrete pillars with quite large bolts. I'd say about 18mm bolts. And it was one of those that had come absolutely just stoved through the window, thrown through, glass everywhere, missed me by, I'd say, a foot or so, but enough. I was only a young kid. I suppose at that time I was around about 9 or 10. And that wasn't the first time anything happened to me, but it was a standout moment. The reason why people think, oh, okay, well, it could have been hooligans, right?
No.
Could have been drunks, could have been, but it wasn't.
No, but Phil, let's just pause there for a moment, because it could have been any of them things, or it could have just been an accident. But the ingredient that makes it interesting is you heard a voice before it happened. As you know, you've analysed this a lot more than me. Say beware. So, and soon as I heard you saying that, and other people listening to this are probably thinking same. I'm thinking, is that some kind of trickster element? Is that a guardian angel? What would you call that voice?
I would call it, I wouldn't say guardian angel, but I would say it is a guardian. But I think I'll discuss that with you in a little while, if that's okay, because this will evolve. This will evolve shortly. The reason that I say it wasn't drunks and it wasn't anything else, we called the police. Now, remember, this is 1970s.
Yeah.
My dad was unmixed blood. Okay. So in the 1970s, as soon as the sun comes out, Paul, I just go dark. I go really tanned, really tanned really quickly. I'd never go red, just go tanned. So this was summertime. It must have been about June time, I think, if I remember rightly, because it was quite warm. Anyway, corner house, the landing window, if you were to look outside the landing window, there was about a 12-foot gap between 12, maybe 15-foot gap between the end of the house, or side on, and the pavement. And then there was a 6-foot wall, which was a brick-built wall pier with a wooden fence on top, if you like. So about a 4-foot fence on top of a brick pier made it into, in total, a perimeter fence of 6 foot. There was a shed in the way. Dad had put a shed just to escape Mum. So he'd kind of like made a shed on the side. Yeah, typical. So you've got both the landing window, which is so at 6, 12, about 15 foot in height up. You've got a gap which is another 12 to 15 foot out to the pavement where the sign was. So it's quite a launch of a heavy item. Interesting part also is when the police came round, they thought it was racist attack first of all. I said, oh, it's got to be racist attack because you've got a funny name. And funny enough, my sister was always like, so she's porcelain white, she's like a ghost. She's porcelain white. I was always a dark tan when I picked up the tan from my dad. But they automatically thought, well, it could have been a racist attack back in the 70s because there wasn't an awful lot of so it's all Smith Jones, whatever else, you know, in the classroom. I was a bit of an odd one out. So they asked the neighbours. Neighbours said no, didn't see anything. Right, okay. Then they inspected the pillars which the sign was on. Blow me down. the pillars, the bolts were still intact. They weren't cut, they weren't taken off. It looked like it had just come off. That was odd.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? That was
really.
like kind of odd. And they rusted on. They rusted, you know, and the police were like scratching their heads.
Was this something that your mum and dad spoke about? I don't mean all the time, but for years afterwards, it had come up in conversation. Did they think that there was a strange element to it?
They did. My dad didn't know. My dad didn't think there was a strange element. He just he was very black and white. He didn't think anything. There was no grey area with Dad. No. There was no. Don't be so daft. It's not, you know, there's no such thing as ghosts. Funny enough, I was always interested in the ghosts and stuff like that. I was always interested in going to the library. The only things available to us at the time were the books with the old black and white photos of Nessie, that famous photo of Nessie with his neck sticking up, the ghost which was seen by an altar, a monk, that ghost coming down the staircase. Those books, that's the only outlet I had to access to. But I was like, every time Mum went to get a Mills and Boone book or a love story book, she'd get a Barbara Cartland, wasn't it? Barbara Cartland or something. Yeah,
that's all I ever read, Phil. Yeah, she loved all those, and I'd go zooming off for the paranormal stuff. So I did have a aptitude towards that anyway, if that's the right word, you know. I mean, obviously you're going to tell us about, you know, when I kind of butted in and talked about this voice that you'd heard, but still for me, and even if there was a logical explanation for this sign, the voice, it happening, it's almost as though, does that imply that whatever it was that was assisting you and trying to guide you, beware Phil, it's almost as though it's seen into the future. It knew it were going to happen.
Yes. And I've had that quite a few times since. And it's a funny sounding voice, you know.
I was just going to say, was it male or female?
A male.
Male.
Very much male. Yeah, male. Quite deep, and it's got a metallic tone to it, like a robotic tone. Very deep though. It's almost like it's almost like one of these, you know, these voice synths that you know, kind of you hear, and it alters the. If you can imagine the lowest, bassest voice you could get, it's that.
That's what it sounded like.
Very low.
And obviously we are going into another account years later. Has that voice that you've heard back then as a child remained the same all the way through? That's tone.
Yeah.
It's fascinating in itself.
So
where have you more to add to that, or where do you move on from there then, Phil, going through childhood? How old would you have been there? 5, 6, 7, 8?
No, I was quite a bit. I was about 9, I suppose, about then, about 9-ish. But I did have a slightly earlier one than that. I can tell you about. Okay, my grandma lived in Felixstowe, Ida, lovely name, Ida. And we used to go visit her. And we went by train. I went with my mum. My dad was a mechanic. He was a service engineer for an American firm. That so he was traveling a lot during the week. So it was school holidays, half term, I think. Mum, if I remember right, Mum took us up to see Ida, grandma, in Felixstowe, and had a great time. It's really good. Loved it by the sea. You know, going down Bent Hill. You know, skateboards were just coming, just sort of like. I didn't have a skateboard, I had roller skates, but I sort of converted, you know, roller skates into a skateboard in a way, and went down this very steep hill called Bent Hill in Felixstowe. Nearly killed myself, but there was no voice then, though, Paul.
No.
But odd thing is, on the way back on the train, it was a push and pull train coming from Felixstowe to Cambridge. No, to Ipswich. That's it. Felixstowe to Ipswich. So it was a push and pull. We got off the carriage, and as we were walking along the platform, there was another train pulled in. I looked across, and I saw these two figures, and the two figures were long, white, almost silverish hair, down to their shoulders, if not past them, actually. They looked so old, Paul. Really, really old. Like,
looking at you.
Sat in the carriage, looking at me behind. They were in the carriage, looking out the window, but they were looking in my direction.
Right.
Right. And I kind of like looked behind me because I thought, who were they looking at? And I remember looking behind me. I then squeezed Mum's hand. I was holding Mum's hand, squeezed Mum's hand. And I was like, Mum, look at that. Look at them. And she said, look, we won't talk about that. Let's just keep moving on. They were waving, Paul. And they were waving in an exaggerated manner. They were waving like, I don't know if I can, they're waving like this. Both of them. And they were sat side by side, jet black eyes, no pupils. I didn't see the whites of the eyes, just all black eyes. Their faces looked like a strange, almost Halloween masks, but they were wrinkled. Back in the day, in the 70s, there was no such thing as latex masks. We did have masks, but we had the plastic, placky ones, which were, very rigid. They weren't very realistic looking. It wasn't until later that we had the latex ones. Now they're absolutely fantastic, but they were wizened, they were wrinkled, they were ancient, long, blonde, silverish hair, long, hooky noses, almost like imagine a witch's nose plonked on them, but they were thinner. They were like, they looked male. They looked male to me.
Yeah.
But it was their eyes, Paul, and they're waving, exaggerated waving like this. And it's like very odd. No one else on the carriage. There was. I can remember there was people standing, but they didn't seem to take any notice of them.
No. And you said that your mum said take a notice, or do you think she saw them and didn't want to look?
Yeah, because she said take no notice. Because I said to her, yeah, I did. I said to her, did you see those? Did you see those people? Really odd people. Did you see them? She said, look, we won't talk about that. We won't talk about that. Odd.
So years later, though, Phil, as you kind of matured and you're leveling these thoughts out in your mind, did you bring it up with your parents?
Oh yeah, I brought it up with Mum. Yeah, Dad really, bless his heart. He once again he said, "Oh, don't be so daft." He really wouldn't have it. Anything like that, he wouldn't have. It's like, no, there's a logical. It's just, they're probably kind of just ill, unwell, But Mum, she had more of a insight. I do believe Mum had more of an insight. She said to me, "Look, some things it's best not to talk about. If you talk about them, it just encourages things."
Yeah, she's probably on the money with that. Do you think? I know you're more involved in the cryptid research than. I mean, you tell me I'm wrong if you, but than the UFOs and other things. But do you think then, by talking about these things, by thinking about them, by meeting witnesses who've seen things, you kind of wake it up and bring that attention onto yourself?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. I do think there's an element of that. We're beings which you see, like you take for instance with witches. Witches will do that. Witches will spell cast, and they will use what's around them because they don't have power in themselves. They they use themselves as a conduit to use the powers and energies around them. We can do much the same, I believe. These entities and these things which a lot of people see, including UFOs, they need us to a certain degree. They need us to witness them. Now, that's not to say that I think that they are biocentric thought, that they're thought forms. that we imagine these into existence. I don't think it's that so much. They are real. The reason I say they are real was because they have an effect on the witness, a very profound effect. That effect may be fear, and that is something which, if you were to self-project that image, say UFO or an alien, it would be very hard to project something that would scare you in the first place to such a degree that a lot of these people, they need help afterwards, Paul.
Without
They
a
need
doubt, yeah.
psychological help, so I think, a lot of it, I think they are real. I do think they're real, but I do also believe that they exist only for us if witnessed. We have to witness them for them to exist in a way.
I kind of disagree and agree and disagree, because obviously if we witness them, then we know that they exist, and it's almost like, does anyone see or hear the tree falling in the forest? And we clearly know that they fell, but nobody knows unless we wouldn't know unless we saw it fall, would we? I think they're there. I don't know whether they need us. I mean, there's no problem in disagreeing on that one. When we see them, you're absolutely 100%. I'm on same page as you, that it's such a profound effect and a life-changing thing that people undergo after they've had some of these experiences, that it puts them on path like what you're on today, and like 181 people in chatter on right now. Everybody's looking for their own answer, unless they've just come in here just to observe. Some people may have done, but where do you think then? We'll jump back to the beings of the people on the train, the black-eyed people, and all we can do is surmise. I haven't got an answer for any of it. Where do you think ultimately, though, these beings are from?
Well, first of all, I just want to say to people that are watching that I fully understand that these things are subjective. Okay, it's me that is interpreting this and relaying it to you. I'm not saying I don't expect people to believe it. It's a difficult thing to believe, but all I'm saying is, from an objective point of view, from what I witnessed and what's stayed with me, I know I saw this. Yeah. So back to them, I do believe that they are signs. They are almost like they tag you. This phenomenon it tags certain people. Some people who, like my father, who would close down completely. He would not have any experience like that. He would not have an experience. They would not appear to him, or if they did appear to him, he wouldn't recognize them to be an experience. So I think there's an awful lot of that goes on, and people do get tagged. I've heard this quite a few times, people that have spoken to me. They seem to also enjoy certain people that witness and talk about them. There's this element to them. It's almost like a way of spreading their story, of a communication channel. They know that I had all this stuff. I didn't come on YouTube years ago and do this. I had no inclination to do this. I came on this and done it because I was recently had like ill health with Crohn's disease, and I was put on a cancer pathway because I had to check to see if it wasn't stomach cancer and all the rest of this stuff, right? And it made me think to myself, do you know what? All of these experiences that I had, I want to document. I wanted so that I'm not the only one to have this. I wanted it documented so that, luckily it wasn't anything bad. It is just sort of Crohn's disease. I can live with it. That's fine. A lot of people have it, and boom, it's manageable. It's not great, but it's manageable. And but at the time, I was worried. Yeah. And because I was worried, I weren't too sure. They don't tell you in hospital. They just put you on a pathway so that you get tested quicker, And I was really worried. And I thought, well, that's when I started documenting. I thought, well, I'm going to get it down here so that other people can always look at it and say, God, do you know what, that bloke, yeah, that strange bloke with the strange name, he had exactly the same as what I had. Hey, look over here, look, see this guy, he had the same as what I had, that sort of thing. And I think it's good for people to have that.
And you've just said it, Phil, and said it as you're saying it from the heart. And I don't think you can be fairer than that. That is great. The place that it's coming from, and it's your truth. And we'll all have a different take on it. But there's nothing to say that what you're saying is not. It's as valid as anybody's, because none of us have probably got the exact science on what's happening. So the voice that you heard. I'm sorry for dwelling on this. But you said it was external and not mind speak. It's not not inside your mind. Is that these type of voices? Is that how you've heard it throughout your life, or have you had what people would term as mind speak? Have you had a voice inside your head that's not been yours? No.
It's really quite audible. From the point of view, I'll tell you what. I did a video where I just went to with work. Bless them, I kind of like travel a lot. Anyway, I went to do some work near Camberwell Cemetery.
Right.
Okay, it's quite recent, relatively recent. It was only a year ago, I think it was, something like that. Anyway, and always wanted to go, Paul. Always wanted to go. So I went to Camberwell Cemetery, going around, having a little look. A lot of the graves, the older section of the graveyards, was all overgrown, but of course everyone knows the story, don't they? That guy that took a shortcut through Camberwell Cemetery, he got pounced upon by this.
I only know because I've just done a little bit of looking at Phil. 1872, weren't it? This story, the Camberwell, is it ghost that was kind of born or created, that people started talking about it? Might not be the one that got pounced upon, but that's when the ghost of Camberwell Cemetery first came into being. Sorry for taking you under there, but I know you're not going to talk about the date. But I like dates.
I like dates as well. No, dates give a quite a lot of validity to the story. Dates are good. No. What I was actually talking about was the Dogman in Camberwell Cemetery.
Oh, please.
Yeah. Well, evidently what happened was a guy took a shortcut, and I went along that shortcut, which leads from sort of a housing estate through the cemetery, old part of the cemetery, up through the new, and then out through a side gate. And I was walking down that path. There's two paths, but I knew the one he took. I kind of had a rough idea, going by the descriptions that I've read. And I was walking down, and a lot of the gravestones were overgrown, as I say, and I was taking a camera, looking around, and I heard that voice again.
Really?
But the voice, again, robotic sounding, so metallic robotic sounding voice, very deep. And this time it said, Phil, go. Actually said, Phil, go now. I then turned around, Paul, to the camera, and I said, please tell me you heard that as well. It wasn't a live, it was recorded, right? Because it's hit and miss. When you do a live and you're out, it's hit and miss with the internet, whether or not you get it. But I recorded it, and I just turned to the camera, I said, please tell me you heard that as well. It was that audible. People have heard a voice on there.
Right.
But to them, it's very, very faint. But they did pick up a voice on that, which they told me in the comments. I heard it really quite audible, very quite clear. It was after that I caught the this quadrupedal, large type 1, if you like, dogman entity come out from a bush behind a gravestone and just morph out of existence on film, like Predator would. Just morph.
Were you alone at the time then, Phil?
Yeah, I'm usually alone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how did it make you feel?
Hearing the voice, I'm quite used to it really now. The voice didn't really make me. I'm quite used to it, but it would be nice for other people to hear it, just to show that,
to validate what you're saying.
Yeah. But the dog that I saw.
Obviously, I want to jump to this creature that you saw, but just stay with voice. Stay with me for a second. Humour me. If I heard the voice, and every time I heard that voice, there's a pattern forming, and I heard it as a child, and a window got stoved in, and then I heard it and something else happened. I'd be thinking, good God, I'd be quite worried. Maybe. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a forewarning of something that's going to happen that potentially is not very nice.
Yeah. I get you. But then it's quite reassuring on the other hand, because
It's got your back.
It's got my back. Yeah. Yeah. And if it can talk to me, and it's not something that is every day. No. Yeah. If it can talk to me, then I know it has got my back. I think it has got a physicality about it. It's just, I can't see it all the while, but it has got a physicality about it. But it doesn't happen all the while. You know, when I go to Tesco's, go shopping, and I'm queuing up, and it doesn't talk to me. You know, it doesn't. It's just on the very odd occasions when there is usually something going to happen.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
And I sort of stole your train of thought then, because you were telling us about this apparition of some kind of being that morphed in and out of existence. And what else happened? Anything or?
That was enough, Paul. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah, it's that was quite enough. I saw what it was at the time. I panned the camera over because I heard the voice. So I panned the camera over, hopefully to catch who was saying the voice. So I panned it over to the direction I heard the sounds. You can see all this on the video. Yeah. As I panned it across, I then saw flashes, really quick. Oh my word, quick, just like quick flashes in about head height, just
pinpricks of light.
Pinpricks of light. Yeah, that's it. That's what I saw. And then I saw a bush kind of like just opposite by the gravestone move. But I didn't see anything else. Didn't see a dog. Didn't see any dog. Didn't see it. And I thought, Christ, what was that? When I got back, I looked through the footage, carried on with my walk, went round, got back, looked through the footage. Well, blow me down. There was these mental fast orbs which flashed past the screen towards me, 3 of them, brilliant white. On film, I caught them, brilliant white, just flashed completely across screen. At that exact time, this dog, but large dog, big pointy ears, came out from a bush by a gravestone. And as it walked across the bush, you could see it just sort of, you could see the bush behind it. The bush sort of morphed through the dog, and it just, you could see weird thing is, Paul, you could see the outline of the dog.
Yeah.
The blurry outline of the dog and just the bush behind. Weird.
Absolutely. And what, you know, and I mean, people say Dogman. I mean, other people say werewolf. But regardless of what we want to define it by, why do you think these things are seen around old earthworks and burial grounds and graveyards and in ancient times we've got deities like the Egyptians who had Anubis. And that were the guardian of the underworld, and so we've got this transition with the dog deities and death. And I'm not expecting to have views on it. I've just thrown that one at you. Any views?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Okay. Look, Dogman and werewolves, 2 separate entities. Okay. Werewolves are much bigger than Dogman. If you get an adult male werewolf and an adult male Dogman won't win. A werewolf will always win. It's huge, massive. They are massive. Okay. They're also with a Dogman entity, they are engineered. I believe they're engineered. Okay. They're more created than they are anything natural.
Okay.
They are a predator. There's very little reasoning with them. They if they tag you, and they can protect, and they have been known to protect in accounts. but there is a big difference between Dogman and a werewolf. The two are not the same. They're totally different.
So when you say that you believe these things are engineered, what we're looking at, what's engineered them? How are we going back along? Is it another civilization, another intelligence? In your opinion?
No, I think a lot of these are not from this realm, to be honest. I think a lot of these are not from this realm. I think they're all related basically to what we would call aliens. But the aliens aren't really what I believe, what we think they are, archetypal kind of like, aliens from planet Zoid. They're not. I had a dream back in May, and I woke up from the dream and I wrote something down, and I wrote it down in 10 minutes. I call it the everything engine. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, I'm sure the people in the chat will.
It might help explain one aspect, one theory. Yeah. One theory. Okay, bear with me. Right. It's not that long. Okay. Right. Okay. So right, this is the everything engine. Okay, I wrote it back on the 5th of May 2024. Woke up from a dream. I dreamt this, and when I exactly dreamt it, I was told this, if you like. I had a strong feeling I've got to write this down.
Okay.
Yeah, whether you think I'm absolute fruitcake bananas, but I had that feeling.
Well, you're in good company, because we've all got strange things that we're sharing with world. So maybe.
Yeah, I like the fruitcakes of this world. Do you know what I mean? I don't, sort of, you know where you are with them, don't you? Really,
we know what to expect. It's
the normal ones. Okay, here we go. Right, okay, the everything engine. Think of a jet engine with time being sucked in through the turbine, then ignited. We live in the ignition. Then the time continues out the exhaust, but being that it's a closed loop, like a static electrical attraction, it loops back on itself, and time again enters the jet engine. At the exhaust of the engine, the bending of the flows back into the engine like an event horizon on a black hole. It's very bright, a white, which is pure information energy. So you could say black holes are the entry and exit ports of our cosmic engine, really. Interestingly, Oumuamua was the only interstellar body not part of the engine we know that entered the engine and left again. I do mention engine a lot. Now, there are infinite flow paths of time, each nearly identical, with carbon matter. Originally, it was formed and contained infinite identical streams, but entropy caused the decoking effect, and carbon forms manifested, and it had form but also bounced and jumped around the streams of flow within the engine. So carbon deposits linger from the combustion process, as it does in an engine, except the engine powers through gravity without inertial effects. That is to say, we are static in stasis within the engine, with time passing through us again and again at such a rate that the engine is traveling fast enough as to ignore local gravity from lunar bodies. The decoking effect is carbon particles within the flow, which are particles left from previous eons of matter, be that organic life, places, beings. Gene Roddenberry was once asked how he got the idea of the shape of the iconic Enterprise spaceship. Evidently, after encounters he had seeing UFOs, he realized the source shape and cigar shapes weren't individual sightings of different craft, but he explained they were facets of a very much larger craft, so huge as we cannot comprehend. So we live on a planet with an maelstrom of particle flow, a rapid movie of creation, the entropy with us knowing the single frame of reality we know and enjoy. What has been will be, and its narrative direction of change dictated only by our structural comprehension. Edward B. Titchener understood consciousness in 3 forms: sensations, images, and affective states. but also affected by previous recumbents of decoking effects, carbon deposits landing within our grand frame of existence. But these entities cannot live in our grand frame of existence due to the fact that they have traveled the time flow around the cosmic engine. So passing back through into our frame of existence, they have a velocity of inertia. This really would make them avatars to us, and us the same to them, because we are on a slightly different rates of flow within the maelstrom of time tube filaments. Okay, theory of relativity suggests that time is the fourth dimension and works in equal parts with gravity time. It's known to be bent and slow, the velocity dependent on the size of the body and the gravitational pull as time flows past the body of material in the gravity well. So basically a large gravity inducing body like a planet, as time would pass by it, it slows down in a well. The less the gravity well, the less time slows. The deeper the well, the more time bends around and slows down. So at a frightening speed, the reality we know fits together in tiny string-like filaments, slotting into place with every step we take. Only very rarely will digital cameras at the appropriate ISO and focal length will capture glitches, as we call it, in a incorrect filament placing together. So basically we will capture images of maybe Dogman, Bigfoot, and they're fleeting.
Yeah,
that's because the time filaments are, as we're going through the forest, it's a high carbon area, so these filaments are fitting together all the while, and as they do in a high carbon area, or basically think of a video game, and if you've got a video game and it's on a scene which is a very complicated scene, it's going to take a lot more computing power to form that section of the game. Same difference really. These highly dense areas, we also see glimpses of previous recumbents of decoking effect, deposits landing within our grand single frame of existence. Dogman and Sasquatch, I always say it wrong, even UFOs slipping in with the reality formation of these interconnecting filaments, tubes at a velocity fitting together in our world. They're a single frame of existence in our world. Now, although it's a single frame of existence, it's a very flexible frame of existence. Our frame is, okay, the time frame is a very flexible one. Even this can happen when we see enigmatic exotic creatures like Dogman. They were elusive, strange in walking posture and gait. I believe is because the inertia they have in their flow line coming through is greater than ours, and hence they're less incumbent on our frame reality and the gravity it serves in our frame reference. So when, like in the short video of Camberwell dog glitches, you clearly see it glitch out of our frame of reality. It's not magic, but as it normally moves quicker, it can't help but leaves our frame of reality. Our gravity has less effect upon that creature's velocity inertia. The reason that's it, game over. But
no, thanks. Before you sort of enlighten us a little bit more, I can't answer anything in that because there were too much to kind of take in. That's something we have to read. And just before we kind of get a little bit deeper into it, what you've just written there, if anybody wanted to read that, is there anywhere that they can read it? Because I
posted it. I posted it and pinned it to my Facebook. So it's on my Facebook page. Anyone can read it. Take it, read it. That's fine.
So you said you wrote that in 10 minutes.
That's 10 minutes, yeah. I had it, I had to get it down on paper. Have you
written anything else, sort of any more downloads like that in 10 minutes? Because I don't know how many words there were there, but there must have been 1,200 words, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, there's an awful lot.
And you were plucking names out. Were the names that you knew, or were that information just there?
I had heard of those names. I had heard of Titchnite, yeah. So I can't honestly say, oh, I'd never heard them before. Star Trek, I know. Yeah. So,
I was forming thoughts as you were talking about, or to ask you something, but then there's other things you're speaking about. So you kind of lost me in the train of it. You know what I mean? Because you talked about entropy a few times, and lots of things there interesting. But I think that, Phil, if it's a genuine download that you've had, and I'm in no position to say it's not, I think it's something that other people, and myself included, I want to read it. I want to sit down and read it.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do, because you see another facet of this thing. I don't know if people out there have had this, but since looking back into the void, if you like, because when I was younger, I took it on face value. The crap happened, basically, and I saw the crap, but I didn't look further into it. It was only when I became more aware of my own, if you like, mortality, and also more aware of the synchronicity of this stuff going on. That I then ventured into looking more deeply into it. Okay, to such an extent that I knew it wasn't just a ghost. It was something else. There's something deeper. There's something tying it all together. So the one, and this is really a sort of a warning in a way. If people do look into this stuff, they have to be aware of one thing. It can have an effect on you physically. It does take its pound of flesh, if you like. A lot of people, including myself, have it's almost as if it has a detrimental effect physically on you somehow. But when you walk away from it and you give it a break for a while, you start to gain strength and start to get better. I've done that many times, and it's odd. It's odd that
you keep coming back to it for the reason. Well, I think the main reason, the one ingredient, is you're looking for more answers. You're looking for, I would imagine I am anyway.
No, it's a splinter, Paul. I'm not really. It's a splinter. I can't get the splinter out. It's like it's a niggling splinter, right? That keeps. I keep witnessing stuff, and it's random, and I got no. I can't figure it out, and that's what that's. And it keeps happening.
Then that's very similar to what I've just said.
It is very similar to what you said. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's. I need to. There's. Look, I'll tell you what happened. This is only not very long ago at all.
Okay.
Right? Completely different. I don't think I've actually told anyone this. Right. Okay. I've got 2 Jack Russell Terriers. I was taking them to the vets just to get them checked up on, because one of my Jack Russell Terriers has got pancreatitis. She's got a very sweet tooth, but we've got to be very, very careful. So she has nothing sweet. Anyway, I always like taking both to get both checked up, weighed, and all the rest of it. So I didn't drive. I walked them on the road, walked them on the pavement, went down the street. As I was heading towards a large roundabout, I saw this guy walk past me. Just past me. Very odd clothes. He had like kind of like he had for a start like a satchel, leather satchel, which yourself or I would take to be like a school satchel almost that we used to have. Do you know the ones? Yeah. And I thought that struck me as well, because I hadn't seen one of those for ages, and I thought, oh yeah. He had one of those, and he passed us, and he was wearing sort of clothes which weren't matching, very odd. They were like kind of a white t-shirt, sort of a suit jacket, dark longish hair. He had his face. He didn't look left, didn't look right, didn't look at me. I was looking at him. I was like, sort of like, oh, it's a bit. It was just satchel got me really, and went past and went walking on. Next minute, I turned around and there he was again, and I saw him, and he passed me for a second time. I looked back, and these 2 guys had the same satchel, same clothes, even their gait was in tandem. Their walking was identical, left, right, left, right. One was walking behind the other by 100 yards, 150 yards, but they looked identical.
So it's not, you've not passed him and he's not there no more, and suddenly he's in front of you. There actually is two of them.
Two.
Yeah.
I saw two.
Any kind of acknowledgement at all with you? Nothing.
No camera. I had the dog in each hand. I thought I was killing it. I was like, no. And both of Jack Russells, they're lovely, lovely dogs, but kind of they're pullers. They are pullers if they see something. So no, I didn't get the camera out in time. A lot of this time, do you know what? You see stuff and you're so gobsmacked by seeing it, you don't think to get the camera out.
We do exactly the same thing on wherever we are, and we've been out a few times this week, and sometimes you'll catch it, sometimes you're lucky enough, but other times, just like you've said, something will appear, and maybe your analogy, your download explains it, because it just seems to enter our frame of reality. It's there. And you're that shocked because it's not flown from anywhere. It's not come from anywhere. It's just there. And then suddenly it's gone. And while you're processing that thought, you might even have a camera around your neck. You half the time you're just not with it enough to take that picture or document it. And it's difficult.
And a thing that strikes me with this stuff that not just you or I witness, but a lot of people, it's absurd. The stuff we witness is absurd. It's like there is a mind behind it. Like they're kind of like saying, okay, we're going to show him that, but it's going to be so bonkers he won't even tell anyone. Yeah, because he's going to look an absolute mad. He's going to look bonkers.
You're spot on, and you touched on the word synchronicity. A few weeks ago, and I've spoke about it on live stream, but a few weeks ago, we're up on them cliff tops. It's late, I don't know. Let's say 10:30, 11. It might be 11:30. It's about 5 or 6 of us. I'm walking back, myself and Pete, and there's a group of us. And I've said it but it's just the synchronicity of it. Pete said there's somebody walking towards us, and I saw him, outline, dark shape of just looked like, for all intents and purposes, it could have been you or me, but in distance, just a black shape, just like a tree, just looks like the shape of a tree.
And you saw him walking towards you?
Walking towards us. We descended down this little incline, and that was it. There were nobody there. I don't know, a few days later, I mean, Linny or Pete or somebody in chat tell me, because they're probably in, we're stood on one of these platforms, and Mick said to us, Bridlington terms this, and it's a gadgie. That's a man. Was that gadgie there? I looked, I could see him. And he's literally probably 20 yards away from us in darkness. I start walking towards him. Ian followed me. There's nobody there. It's just the synchronicities. And like you were saying, we heard a strange noise up there a few weeks ago. And then we've got Chris Meek, brilliant Scottish UFO researcher, who kindly went to Ben McDoo. You've heard of the big grey man of Ben McDoo. If you haven't, you have a look into it. And he went there last weekend. But we'd been talking about this noise we'd heard on cliff tops, and jokingly, tongue in cheek, because it sounded like a supercharged frog. This noise we heard, but it was weird, and like, I don't think it was Jeremy. He said, it's the weir frog, and we jokingly said we've created a new cryptid. He's on Ben McDoo last week, early hours at morning, gets up at 5 a.m. He's got a husky dog. I said a Malamute, but it's not. It's a husky. Has it on a rope because it chases everything. He's told me only today. Dog's just sat bolt upright, looking into the darkness, and hears this noise. Sounds like a frog on a mountain. In this time, and he says, and it's really loud. I'm not going to do it because I'll make myself sound stupid, and you know what I mean? I can do that without making a sound.
Go on, do it. Go on, do it.
You're all right. So he makes this sound. He says the mist cleared a little bit, got flare camera out, nothing. Then it's behind him. But he said the interesting part, which he'd not latched onto, Phil, until probably yesterday, he said, my dog never moved. He said, I have to watch it with sheep. I have to watch it walking down an hedgerow. He said, it'll suddenly pounce. Like you'll see foxes in Arctic, and they jump and pounce and they'll pull a mouse out or a lemming or something. They jump in air and then dive. He says it'll do that. He says it wants to chase everything. He said it never moved. But I found that fascinating that we talked about this strange sound and likened it to the frog. Bearing in mind, it moved all over the place, wherever it was. It moved like going on for 100 yards away in distance. And then a few weeks later, he's on Ben McDo and he hears a strange noise and likens it to a frog. And then he's added to it now because he said he's heard it in his hallway of his home. Not quite the same. He says it were almost mechanical, but I've never heard anything in home I'm in. Like this attachment that's potentially followed him.
Absolutely fascinating. Was he aware of you hearing this frog before he heard the Ben McDo frog?
I would have thought so, because I speak to Chris quite often. I can't remember talking to him about it, but I would have thought he will have heard us speaking about it. And he's such a genuine guy, you know. He's not got loads of sort of wicked and wild stories to share, and he's gone to a place where there's the legend of the big grey man, and he's not come back and said, I've seen the apparition of a big grey man. He's heard this strange sound.
Yeah. Oh no, that's not meant to be. It's not meant to be an apparition. Is it? People have heard footsteps on Ben McDo.
Without a doubt, yeah. They have footsteps, and not only that, Phil. I mean, because it's a brilliant story, as you know, because a lot of people, a lot of academics or scientifically thinking people will say the footsteps are the reverberation which people hear as their own footsteps, the echo of their own footsteps, and then when they stop, the footsteps stop. But that's not always the case in a lot of these stories. They've heard these footsteps around their camp when they're in the tent. So they're a lot harder to explain. It's an incredible account. You know, it's fascinating.
With the Ben McDo frog, I just want to put something forward, but it could be. It's a well-known thing now. It's
going to be now.
Yeah, it's going to be now. My God, yeah, it's going to be in a few. Oh my God. Yes. Quantum entanglement. That's where there's two particles, maybe I think it's neutrons or protons, and one can be on one side of the universe, but another one can be on the other side of the universe. If they go through a prism, each one will go in the same direction through a prism. So if one goes to the right, the other one will go for the right instantaneously. So what I'm trying to say is there's a communication which is known. This is known. This is proven. There's a communication which they can't quite understand, because nothing can travel faster than the speed of light, or so we think, so we believe. But so yeah, you've got that. I mean, that's half the problem. Half the problem with what we're dealing with is it's on such a almost like macroverse. You know, it's kind of boils down to quarks, atoms. It's subatomic. It's quantum. You know, and I think a lot of that has to do. I mean, people say, "Oh, Phil, there's no such thing as how can you talk about?" I get quite a bit of stick from people who say about portals. You know, I believe there is portals. I honestly do believe there is portals. I've got a very good friend who videoed one, and it's very convincing footage. Even though, don't get me wrong.
What did he video? It's hard to explain because we can't see it. But
yeah, no. Well, what it was, he was in this forest, and they both had one had night vision camera and the other one had thermal camera. So his thermal camera was set. His mate was his thermal camera was set onto black and white, so it's sometimes easier to put it onto black and white. I've got one myself rather than color, because color kind of like the colors bleed into each other. It's very undefined. Yeah. So hotter an item is, the blacker it will be. Yeah, sort of thing. That's the way it will be. Anyway, so his friend had that, and he kind of some reason had the feeling to look up. As he looked up and he took the video image, he saw this mass, and this mass looked like a swirling ball of black cloud, if you like,
Okay.
and it was moving in between the trees. And damned if it didn't. He put it down to being a portal.
Yeah.
I believe him. Yeah, he even got heat signatures off it as well.
Do you know? Well, obviously, what he's seen. I'm not saying it's not a portal, but it's a play on words, isn't it? We don't know, do we, for sure what he's seen? We were up there a few weeks ago, and I know that Ian's in chat, and I know that Pete will be watching. But we saw a triangular shaped cloud. And I don't mean like some people will see an angel and Jesus in a cloud and fluffy edges of it looks like a hand off Father Christmas. It's a triangular shaped cloud on its own, just moving. It really strange. I'm not saying that were a portal, by the way, but it's all open to interpretation. I think all we can agree on with a lot of these things, I don't necessarily mean you, all of us, is that these strange anomalies are occurring, and probably we're just playing on words, saying what they are.
Yeah,
Phil, I'm looking at time. Go on, mate. Go on.
Oh no, just quickly, we're catching up though. Okay, we are catching up. MIT recently have put forward, and they've said that the Higgs boson that was found in 2012, the God particle.
The God particle.
Yeah. In enough quantity on a quantum wave, it would actually drop through this reality and cause a portal. And that's mathematically proven.
That's fabulous. Honestly,
yeah.
Just one thing before we just pull Les in here, because we'll just jump back to that cemetery, because I just wrote a little bit down, because you said this guy got followed, pushed down, and this dog type creature's over the top of him.
Well,
1872. For weeks, it says, for weeks after this happened, a woman was knocked to the floor in that cemetery by an invisible presence, and then houses along Camberwell Road were subject to strange happenings. Items flying into the gardens for no reason, trees damaged, missiles of every description thrown around, and attacks on people that they put down to supernatural beings. And there's similarities there, isn't there, to what you talked about with this guy getting pushed down.
Yeah. This guy, I think, was in the 1990s, I believe, quite recently, Paul. He was used as a shortcut. As he was using it as a shortcut, he heard a growling, and all of a sudden, this large humanoid looking with a dog's head pounced on him, pushed him to the ground, all documented. You can look it up on Google it. Pushed him to the ground and was salivating over him, sniffing him up and down. The poor guy was so terrified, he messed himself. Okay. The dog then got up and ran away, and it I believe, if I remember rightly, it ran away bipedal. It ran on two legs, this dog-headed, and it looked, its description of it, absolutely like, archetypal, pointy ears, long muzzle, just like went. Yeah, just like left him.
It's fascinating that then, isn't it? That we've got this story doesn't talk about a dog type being, but she was pushed to the ground by an invisible presence. Do you know then after that in 1990s if other things occurred? I mean, because I'd be looking then. I'd be in an archive. If I found it were 1994, I'd be searching.
Yeah, there was Paul. There was another episode where I think it was a police officer off duty with his wife. I'm sure it was a police officer. Was walking with his wife on a pavement. There's a road that runs by the side of it, and they're walking by the side, and then it's a steel fence. And as they're walking along, his wife heard a growling, and she stopped. Can you hear that? He's like, "What? Hear what? That growling? Can you hear the growling?" He said, "What? Yeah, I can." Anyway, all of a sudden, the tree on the cemetery side beyond the fence started shaking, and we're talking, she described it as the whole of the trunk of the tree was almost as if it was lifted up and just was shaking like this. It was another account that was documented.
Fascinating, isn't it? Well, just before we go to Les, I just want to say that because I saw somebody called Space Scout in the chat. Got your email today. I'll be looking at that with Les tomorrow. With them, thanks for the images, and we'll probably have a little natter about that on Sunday if we can, and maybe talk to you about what you managed to take a picture of because it's interesting. So we'll bring Les in. Thanks, Les.
Hi, and great show so far tonight, guys. Brilliant.
Thank
Some
you.
great responses, some good questions in. But I'll just pick up with the last two that I've just slipped in here because it just refers to what you've just been talking about. And let's have a look. I'll put this one on, not so much a question, but 1423. Your pal needs to take seriously, Paul. This is Scotland. We have no idea what these entities are capable of, but the number of hikers to disappear in the Scottish Highlands is mounting year on year.
Yeah, I would agree. And he's you've 40 and you've seen Chris. He's been on this stream several times, Les, at least 2 times, hasn't he?
Twice, yeah, I think so.
And you know, he's a sensible guy. He wouldn't take anything lightly, but he's same as the rest of us. He's looking for answers, and he went up to Ben McDoo with a friend and the dog, just to kind of give it a bit of a recce. And we shall be visiting there either early before winter sets in this year or in spring next year, and doing a bit of filming and stuff. But yeah, thank you. Go on, Les. Sorry.
Okay, going back to the frog sound. Ginge 197 Truth provide exactly the same sound frog on the field where I walk my dogs. It's a private field, and the landowner heard the sound too. The dogs didn't react, and any unusual sound to any the dogs didn't react.
Sound. They're usually on it. The dogs are usually
on the if they can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, and I suppose we've got to say, if it sounds like a frog, then some people are going to say, well, you've just heard a frog. Do you know what I'm thinking of what Chris heard on Mountain. I'm not sure that it were going to be a frog. What we heard on Cliff Tops appeared at back of Martin Abbas, who was in chat. Then it appeared under my feet. Then I'm doing this, people, and they'll be probably thinking, Christ, he's told us this now for the last 3 weeks. But then it appeared at other side at stand, then down cliffs, then up in field. My gut feeling is it was no frog, but we have to give you some kind of analogy as to what it sounded like.
Can I just quickly interject on that last comment from that person that said about more people are disappearing in woods?
Yeah.
When I've been out investigating in woods and forests, more and more I see articles of clothing. And these articles of clothing are hanging on trees, ludicrously high. And these articles of clothing are not dirty. They look really quite new. And we're talking trousers. We're talking, I saw a dress. I've seen socks, underpants. You know, really? And now, you know, I remember being young. Well, just anyway, and you know that stuff does go on in the woods. I get it. Yeah. But what doesn't go on in the woods is the only way they could actually get a pair of trousers into a tree at that height. I took photographs of it. A tree of that height and folded over a branch would be in their underpants, climbing up. And I can't see them doing that really, because it's just improbable at that height.
But have there been reports of missing people in area?
Well, you know, we're talking about woods where, there's more and more. I mean, every wood, every forest that you go to, Paul, nearly every foot of that forest in history, every inch of that forest has been bathed in blood at one time or another. Every inch of that forest has had people that have gone missing. It doesn't matter what forest you're in. There has been accounts in history, if you were to look back and research, where people have gone missing. It happens so often. I would say nearly every forest in the country.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move on with a question from Silver Carper. Hey, Phil, out of all your dogman encounter knowledge, what is the highest amount of dogmen seen in one incident?
By myself, I would say 2 is the most that I've seen. I've seen 2 different. Usually, I see 2 different sorts. I see a type 1. You've got 3 types, yeah. You've got a type 1, which in Suffolk, Norfolk, they were called Old Shook or Old Stinker. which is a quadrupedal. And it looks like an oversized jet black dog, usually with red eyes. Hangs around cemeteries a lot. In old folklore, it goes back eons. There's a famous story of it in Suffolk, in a church in Suffolk, where it like went straight through the doors of the church and killed the parishioners. It's well documented, that story is. And there's still scratches on the door, about 7 foot high scratches of a dog on a church door as it blasted through. So I've seen usually a type 1 and a type 2. Now, type 2 is a, I believe, what in Cannock Chase people talk about pig man. I believe that's a type 2 dogman. So it's a very, hasn't got a long muzzle. It's more gorilla looking, very, very big, wide-shouldered, stocky, kind of like fat, but it's not as very muscular, but it's big. It's a big beast. Very ugly. Yeah. It's not Dogman's got kind of like, when you see illustrations of it, or you see like pictures on some trail cams, it's got kind of like almost it's got a chiseled body. It looks like it's been created as a super soldier. It's got a chiseled triangle shaped torso, strong muscular legs, long muzzle. That's a type 3. Type 2 is the flat face one. I've seen the type 2 and a type 1 quadrupedal, more like an oversized dog. Not together. They're in at the same time, but a time span of around about 5 to 10 minutes between them, walking along. I saw the type 1 first, videoed it, got it on video on my channel, made a short of it as well. It's just sitting by a tree, under a tree, jet black. You can see its ears looking at me and the dogs. Dogs were going crazy. And the other one, the larger type 2, was behind me, heard wood knocks, very audible, caught them on video, turned around. It sounds mad, I know, but like I say, I think people get tagged. I'm sure I'm tagged. Turned around, and yet you can quite clearly see it. It is up to interpretation. I get it. And if people see it and look and say, no, that's a branch and a shape of, I leave that up to you. That's your interpretation.
People can potentially look, well, not potentially, they can look at these clips of film on your YouTube channel, yeah?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, all on there.
And because Les will get to that shortly. And I saw this into question, Les, so I'm not taking one of your questions here, but I saw Tom Waters say, what was the name of the wood where you saw this clothing?
The clothing was in a wood near to Loughton.
Okay.
In Essex.
Right.
Well, London, Essex. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's part of Epping Forest. Part of it, but it's like a wood.
Okay, Les, it's us with another.
All right, Zeno, Phil, the old people you mentioned reminded me of the black-eyed children with the way your mum reacted. Do you think she's had them all her life too?
Yeah, I think with mother, I don't think she's had she hasn't spoken about black-eyed children seeing anyone with jet black eyes, but mum's a funny old bumbling thing. She's also had a lot of.
Is she listening to it?
Yes, probably. How you doing, Mum? Love you, really, Mum. So she'll be the first one to say that odd things do happen around her, but she always says, like she has a knocking on the front door. She still gets it in her bungalow where she lives at the moment. There's knocking on the front door. I put a camera up outside to see. Well, let me know, Mum. Let me know when you hear the knocking. So middle of the night, be knocking at the front door. Nothing on camera at all. I've said to her, look, Mum, sometimes there is a medical condition where, and it's not madness. There is a medical condition whereby, people wake up hearing bangs, in your head. Is it that? She said, no, don't be daft. She said, I also hear the conversation in the conservatory. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, people talking in the conservatory. I was like, oh, you didn't tell me that one. Really? So she's had lots of things go on. It's like when she lived in I call it 106. There's another masonette. Okay, so lived in near to Southall. It was a cheaper place to move to. It's a masonette she moved into. So it was a very strange one because she was a ground floor masonette, but there was parking out the back, but really dark. People used to use it as a, if you like, a bit of a lover's lane. Yeah, where the garages were at the back. Yeah, so it could have been. It got a bit sort of like a bit nervy going up there sometimes because it's very dark and people just parked there and whatnot. And it was there that I went to visit Mum. I wasn't living with her at the time. I was a big boy and I had a girlfriend, but I went back because I had a row with a girlfriend, so I went back one weekend. And I said, "Right, Mum, I'm here for the weekend." "Oh, are you there?" "Yes, I am." So anyway, I sat there watching TV, and I saw she had on a lounge door, lovely big lounge. She had a glass door, and the glass door was slightly frosted. Yeah, and that partitioned off, and if you went out that door, it'd lead to a hallway. If you turned right, it would lead to a bathroom. Turned left, it'd lead to her bedroom. Directly opposite, a door would lead to my bedroom. So a 2-bedroom, small masonette. And I was watching TV, and I saw the light was off in the hallway, but I saw this black, low but black thing move past the frosted glass hallway door. I was like, you kind of think it's in your peripheral vision. You kind of think, and it was something that was darker than the surrounding dark of the light being off in the hallway. And I said to Mum, I said, "Oh, did you?" I said, "I'm sure I saw someone go past that window, in the hallway." She said, "Oh, don't worry about that, dear." She said, "I see that all the while." What do you see?" She said, "It's like a black mass, isn't it? Goes past. Never causes me any trouble, but I often see it when I'm here alone." I was like, "You're kidding." Yeah. So things like that have always happened around her.
Right, got you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just bring this one up because I'll probably forget it or I might not get to it. Ian Linney, Paul, it was only frog type noise for a short time, and then much heavier stones type banging together.
Yeah, I would agree. But we did think it sounded like a frog at the beginning, but Ian came up with a perfect analogy, or we all kind of agreed with it because we were trying to decipher what this sounded like. I mean, I wondered if it was settlement in rocks because we were on 200 to 300 foot cliffs, and if there's a bit of settlement and brick, stones are popping. But Ian come up with an analogy. When is it the sport curling, the ice, the granite blocks that they slide down ice to get them close to each other, and when they hit, they make that really solid pop when these hard materials hit. So yeah, it did sound like that as well. So it all open to interpretation. I just found it fascinating that at first we said, I think it was Jeremy jokingly said it sounded like a frog, the were frog. So and I went, well, we've created a new cryptid, and then we've suddenly we have, and then suddenly Chris has gone up there and said it sounded like a frog. So yeah, fascinating, and I do agree with you, Ian. Yeah, you're right.
Andy Ghost Whisperer, sounds like black-eyed kids, but adults. Phil.
Yes. Yeah. I've never actually witnessed black-eyed children, so I couldn't say. But what I can say, I think you are on the right track. Do you know it's a very a shocking thing to see no whites of the eyes, even at that young age. To see no whites of the eyes, very shocking thing to see.
And they were very white skinned as well. Did you say?
Very white skinned, almost like a powdery white.
Yeah,
powdery white. Yeah,
it'd be frightening, wouldn't it?
Really scary. Scared the bejesus out of me. Yeah.
Heatster, just an observation from Heatster. I don't know why, but the black-eyed people on the train reminded me of Paul's
witch encounter. Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to touch on any of that, Paul, for anybody who doesn't know about it.
Well, when I recounted it in this book, Night People, and it just went back to when I was a teenager. I can't remember, 14 years old, and the old lady that turned up in village, and other kids were saying they've met a witch. And we've done this one a few times, Les, haven't we? They've met a witch, and they said that she'd said to them, "Die like poison." And I'd written all this. I tell you what was fascinating. I'd written all this, and I'd never met any of these people for 30, 40 years. And one of lads from childhood got in touch with me, not because of book, just got in touch. Adrian Kirby, they called him, and we've kept in touch ever since. And he were talking about it. He says, and he says, and you remember you encountered her as well. And I did. I'd got a little lad in my arms as I'm walking down from farm, because I were always working on farms and doing stuff around farms as a teenager. And I've got farmer's son in my arms, Darren, they called him. And this woman's at Bottom Drive, and I can see her in a mustard coloured coat and an headscarf on, and she's there right in middle at farm gates, and she's just looking. And I know, even at the distance, I know she's just fixed on me. And I felt apprehensive. It were weird. So I'm walking down, little old lady, even as a 14-year-old boy, you shouldn't have been frightened. And as I passed her, she just followed me, and her eyes looked black. And it were frightening. And I got the die like poison. It was just really strange. There were more to it, but this is Phil's show. But you're right, Ezo. Yeah, and thanks for bringing that one up. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what die like poison means. It's not. Don't sound very nice.
Paul, can I ask Paul quickly? Do you think that because I've often seen a lot of like orbs. Whenever I've seen these things, I've seen like orbs as well. Do you get that?
Yeah, the light form phenomenon. It seems to. When we'll use it, we'll do that, shall we? We'll talk about the orbs, the UFOs, the cryptids. After we've done great stuff, Phil. Okay, mate. Yeah.
Okay, and I know you just touched on this one, Phil. Phil, was your mother used to seeing the phenomenon? It sounded like she might have seen them before. That was from Martin Abbott.
Yes, it does. I know. She didn't mention it. She didn't mention that she had, but she wasn't unduly shocked about it. You know, as in kind of if it was me and I was an adult, I would, and I had say my kid with me, I would stop and actually double take. She didn't do that. I would stop and say, hang on a minute, look through the clock, what? I wouldn't just walk, but yeah, she sped up as if she kind of saw, and I don't know, maybe she knew. I mean, she was a Suffolk girl. She was born and raised. She was born in Christchurch in Ipswich, so she's, a lot of my family on my mum's side originally from Birmingham, but from Suffolk, and they're used to seeing, I think, going by some of the stories mum's come out with, they're ghosts and other bits and bobs, is well known in the family. Do you know, it's one of these old stories, don't tell me about auntie this and auntie that, and your grandma saw one of them.
So since you've started getting a bit, well, not a bit more heavily involved in this subject, what's reaction been with your mum? And other she's cool with it, I mean, she's cool with it. She thinks she says to me sort of so long as you just take care of yourself. She says she's worried about me going out in the woods, obviously, because says you really ought to go with somebody. I said, well, yeah, sometimes I do, but very rarely. I said, I'm okay. Sometimes I take the dogs with me. I don't normally take them at night, but if I go out at night, I go out, man. But I don't. To be honest with you, I don't tell her. You just do it, yeah. Okay,
I've just done it, and I've probably just done it now.
You've just told her, yeah, she's going to be disgusted.
It's going to be absolutely disgusted.
Right, so go on then.
The voice you described is exactly the same as the one recorded during the EVP sessions in the skull experiment. When hearing it, what was your emotional state in each instance? Did you feel calm, Phil?
Yeah, felt calm. Coming down the stairs as a kid, I can remember what I was intent on was nipping down the stairs. There's a position in the stairs where it allows you to look through the crack in the door, and I can watch TV, what mum and dad were watching in the lounge. And I was able to sit there through the stair balustrade and see what was on TV. so I wasn't all worried, or it's just hearing that voice was, yeah, it was like kind of, and I just turned. Lucky I turned. If I hadn't have turned, I swear it probably would have hit me. I turned, as I turned, you sort of drop a step, don't you? I dropped a step, turned, looked round, and crash. This whole sign came through the window.
Okay, thanks for that, Phil. Move on with another question from Dragonborn. Evening, Phil. Where did the name Dogman TP Hunting come from?
Oh yeah, not very much imagination, really. That's where that came from. It's it's more descriptive, really. Dogman. I love dogs. Love my dogs. So
There's the Dogman.
yeah. There's the Dogman bit. If you think it's because it's just Dogman, no. I went out, made videos initially because going out in the woods and stuff, these structures appeared to me. Now I've done a little bit of going out in the woods and sort of like staying out in the woods and camping and whatnot. And with bushcraft, bushcraft is usually done, and they use like what they call a spud to get or to sort of debug. Yeah, that's right. And any sharp bits, so that if you want to put a tarp over, or if you want to really rough it and you want to use ferns or whatever, it doesn't cause a problem. So it smooths it off. These things don't have that type of stuff. These things are built not for shelter. That's the thing. So there's no wind protection in them. There's no rain protection in them. They usually, I find them an hour and a half hike. Like when I went to Cannock Chase, it's a long way in, and I find this stuff. And another thing I've found is with a lot of these on the inside, when you see them, anyone out there, if you do see them, let me know. But there'll be like burn marks on the inside facing wood, as if it's been exposed to a high energy heat. Just on the inside wood of the TP structure itself, you'll find burn marks. If you do, let me know, because I've seen that an awful lot. From Thetford Forest up in Suffolk, Norfolk, through to Epping, Cannock Chase. All these structures all look the same as well. They have the same modus operandi, if you like, a build. And you also get large X's. Massive.
What do you think? What do you think the X's are for? What do you think? Is it some kind of place marker, or what do you think that's for?
I've spoken to people. There's a couple of people that have said that their energy, they create energy. The X's and the Y's are there to create energy. And the portals, if you like, are the TP structures, hence the energy exposure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that so much. I don't know. I'm pretty open, because it's a bit of a far stretch to imagine them being a portal. But I do think probably when you've got trees that have taken up by the root and then placed together in a very large X. Usually these trees are beeches as well, white barked ones. I think it's boundary markers. I'm sure it's boundary markers, signals.
We have found X's, and we've found trees in forests that have fallen in different directions. I mean, I were in Howard Dale with Chris Wrighty, were in here earlier. I don't know if he's still in. And we found a few odd anomalies with trees, but we obviously, Phil, and everybody else in chat, we can't put it all down to being some kind of cryptid. Strange things do happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they do.
But likewise, what you're talking about, there's probably some truth in it, Phil. I'm not knocking it, but
no,
it's all interpretation, because we just don't know, do we?
Yeah, but even if it's 10%, which are unaccounted for, non-human, kids haven't made it, then what is it? Why are they there? They're as much an enigma because a lot of these structures are geometric in form. When you see them, they're equilateral, in their shape, a little bit like a forest version of a crop circle.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, Les, go on. Hit us with another.
Space Cow. Phil, do you have any idea how inertia counteracts momentum?
Well, with inertia, that is momentum. Inertia is a movement. So if you've got a flow of water, a stream, the inertia of the flow on the banks will draw in maybe pebbles. So it's the flow is the central part, is the main part that's the flow. So a flow of time will be the main direction of travel. The inertia is where it's pulling, so it might be pulling against gravity.
So
And it'll be pulling, attracting or retracting with gravity, depending on the size of the gravitational pull on that particular body, whether it be a stream, whether it be a planet.
Okay.
Not so much a question, this one as a statement. Zeno, the urgency to write your everything engine dream down suggests your higher self has experiences from an alternative universe, sending your memories as it lands. Time isn't linear, it's just now.
Yeah, time isn't linear. No, they're quite right. Yeah. I've put some thought behind that. Yeah, time isn't linear. Time is all kind of like, if you can imagine, it's hard to imagine, but time is just now. That's it. We haven't got when I say right now, I didn't have that a minute ago, and I won't have it again. We just got this frame. That's what I was talking about. This frame of existence. Look, it's like this. People when they say, especially in the States, and they've got guns, and they shoot Dogman, and Dogman, or they shoot Bigfoot. I shot it, but the bullet bounced off. I don't get it. I can't understand why the bullet bounced off. Why didn't the bullet? What are they made of? Titanium? No. I think what it is because the relative frame of time that we're in is not the relative frame of time. We're in a flexible frame of time, granted, but when we see these creatures as avatars, the bullets will bounce off because they are on a slightly different relative frame time. So when a bullet travels, it's not traveling at the speed that we comprehend it to be for that avatar. When it hits the avatar, that avatar may be traveling a greatly increased speed or a greatly slower speed. It will have no physical impact on it because the frame time is different for each of these, including people will say, Phil, we've read your thing, everything engine. What about UFOs? What about the alien? What about the spaceships? They're not organic, are they? Yes, they are. They're organic. They're a lot of times when you see footage of UFOs, you'll see it and it'll go like this. Yeah, when you see footage, very often it will go across and then jump and go across. It'll be smooth, linear motion and then jump. All of a sudden, like almost it's stumbling, and then it will kind of like disappear a bit and then it will go on and then jump and stop and go. Once again, it's because the everything engine, because that frame of existence that we are in is different to the frame of existence that is in. But it is still a carbon-based form. That's why it can jump across. These streams are very close to each other. Does that help?
Okay. I'm sure it does. Thank you. Go on, Les.
Okay.
To be sure, prior to becoming an investigator, had Phil ever studied physics?
Yeah, I studied it, but no qualifications in it.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay. Tony Worrell. These creatures are spirits protecting the dead and sites seen around ancient monuments and burial mounds and can manifest as anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I suppose there's a good possibility that you're right there, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, very true. They do.
Red saying, Phil, interesting theory on realms from your dream. A theory I've been pondering for a while. I wonder if this is responsible for the missing person cases.
Interesting. Well, that's a thing. I really don't know. I would say probably. You see, the missing person cases is baffling because a lot of the missing persons cases, they find piles of clothes where they go missing, but neatly stacked piles of clothes. And with the everything engine theory, they're on a different frame of time. Now, whether they can manipulate that time, they would have to, because they wouldn't be able to be a wholly physical being in this frame time we're in. We can see them. They would be physical from the point of view we can hear them. We can hear, we'll be able to hear them. A lot of the metallic sounds that we hear in forests, I've heard them as well. I've recorded them. Metallics, a metal door closing in the middle of the wood at 2 a.m. in the morning. In the morning, I've been there and I've heard it. I've recorded it. Those are okay. I get it. Those, because they're the filaments slotting together and not quite making it. So you get that kind of imagine of two fluorescent tubes trying to slot together. You make that sort of metallic sound as they're slotting together, forming what I perceive. And then they come through. Whether they can come through and be wholly in our frame time to be able to take one of us, I really don't know. I'm sorry. I wish I did.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's have a look then. John Alexander. Hi, Phil. Do you think that short time shifts could be linked to the deja vu experience?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Carl Jung, yeah. Famous guy, isn't he? I remember he went to Italy. And he went with a lady friend of his, and he went to see where was it in Italy? Livorno. Let me know. It's Livorno, I think, in Italy. It doesn't matter. A place in Italy, and he went to see a chapel, big chapel, but a chapel, and he went with his lady friend, and they were looking, and they saw these beautiful frescoes. Carl Jung, this is okay. Yeah. Beautiful frescoes. And depicting different stages of Christ, like saying a weird one actually of Christ putting his hand out to Peter while Peter is falling into water. Fresco of that for some strange reason. But anyway, he left, and he went back home, and he then asked a friend, when you go to Italy, can you get me a print of that, a picture or print or something, get me so that I can remember that. He said those frescoes that were in that church. Yeah. And his friend went and inquired. They never did have any frescoes there. So Carl Jung witnessed a time slip. He was there, witnessed these mosaics, and that baffled him to the day he died. He could not understand. One of the greatest minds in modern history, and he had a time slip.
That messed him up a little bit, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Phil. Zeno, Phil, can I ask, what is your level of spirituality? Do you meditate? And if so, how often? Your vibrational level intrigues me and may be important.
Yeah. I don't really meditate, to be honest. No, I don't. I don't meditate. There's one occasion I had in my life where I was consciously aware of a being which was more than what we are. And I had a consciousness that everything that I was seeing, everything that I was witnessing, everything that I was interacting with was being sent up as information up to something, but definitely up to something. But in return, I had a glow, a beautiful feeling of comfort and reassurance, and everything was going to be fine. I was protected. Very odd. 3 days that lasted for, and that was after seeing a shadow being, which scared the producers out of me. So yeah, odd. But I don't actively meditate. I don't have time really. I know it sounds a bit lame, but I don't.
So the shadow being type entity frightened you to death, and then you have this moment of sort of euphoria, this 3 days of absolutely bliss. And do you think then that was the same thing that's been saying, Phil, watch out, Phil?
No.
And just no,
No.
you don't think that?
No. I called the being Ebon Pyramidium, Latin for black pyramid. Basically because it manifested. I was living in a bedsit in Chiswick. I was working in a car dealership, funny enough, just up the road. It's gone now, in the parts department. And so I was always very good with numbers. I could retain numbers. Names useless. Numbers I could still retain them. Brilliant. I was always very good with numbers. And anyway, in a bedsit, long and short of it, single room, had a bed in the middle of the room, chest of drawers to one side, and the chest of drawers was on the same wall as the door, entering in and out. The window, only one window, was a sash window to my right hand side if I sat on the bed. So left hand side had the chest of drawers and door, right hand side sash window. One evening I woke up and I couldn't move at all. Couldn't move. Absolutely nothing. Physically tried with my arms, my legs couldn't. I looked across the room by the window on the right hand side. In the corner was this black ball, and the black ball was really black, and it kind of manifested into a shape. And the shape. Sorry, Paul.
What it did it manifest into sharp edges?
Yes. Yeah, pointy,
Mm.
triangle shaped. Everything was like triangle shaped, if you like. I'll tell you what it looked like to me. It almost looked like a Pied Piper, a silhouette of Pied Piper. Had a hat as well, a pointy triangular shaped hat. And oddest thing was, in Blackadder, the skirts the men used to wear back in the day. Those sort of like, they wore those funny skirts, frilly sort of skirts they wore. I forget, there's a name for them. It baffled me. I can't remember what that's called, but it looked in silhouette like it was wearing one of those. Right. And it manifested from this ball, went across the room towards the chest of drawers, and ended up directly in front of the bottom of the bed. And I could see it, even though it's silhouette, I could see it as if it turned to look at me. All the while I couldn't move. Okay. Then I had a feeling, I can only tell you it was a feeling, that it came closer. I can't swear to that because it was just a silhouette at the time. But I kind of looked away. I put my head towards the window. It was on my left. I had a strong feeling it was on my left. And it growled something. Yeah. And I then it left, and I saw it went towards the ball again. Chest of drawers, went past that. As it did, the chest of drawers, in the middle of the chest of drawers, two opening up doors, quite an old-fashioned thing, but in the middle was a long mirror that you could look at yourself in, that dimmed. Yeah, because the light coming through from the street lamps in the window, you could see a reflection dim. I noticed that, I saw that, and then it left. Right. Funny thing is, in the morning, woke up, right? I'd weed myself, only a little bit, but I still weed myself. I wasn't out of it. I didn't do drugs. Okay, paracetamol most. That's it. All right. And I definitely wasn't drunk because I'd worked that morning anyway. Right. I don't drink on a school night because I'm terrible in the morning. Can't do it. Anyway, I don't drink at all now. But anyway, regardless, woke up in the morning. Now there's a bed set in a house, shared house. There was all kinds of people in there. It was the type of place where you go walking up the stairs and each individual room's got padlocks on the outside. You know the one? It's got padlocks on the outside of it. Yeah, so landlords can like come, oh, he's gone, don't know where he went, put a padlock on, shut the door. It was that type of place. You had to be a bit careful. The bathroom, grotty, everything. My bedroom door, I made sure any shackles I had in my life was in that room. Yeah. I made sure the bedroom door was always shut. Do you know what? It was open. where that shadow being had gone out, left it open.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Fun.
Okay.
How are we doing, Les? We've plenty of questions here, haven't we?
So look, have you ever seen the humanoids in black hooded robes, 7 foot tall?
A humanoid?
Yeah.
No, that would have stuck with me. That would have stuck with me. No, I've seen shadow being. Humanoid as in
I would imagine. Think of something like a monk. Tell me if I'm wrong. I can.
Oh,
that's
right.
That's what I'm
Okay.
getting.
Oh,
not
like
necessarily a
ghost.
shadow. He said beings in black robes. I mean, I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah. No. I've seen ghosts, but I've not, and I've heard ghosts. I had a terrible time with ghosts at one time. Awful time. Another thing. See, tagged. Yeah. Awful time with ghosts. But mostly noises from ghosts. And dead birds. Yeah.
Really?
A lot of dead birds.
Okay. What we'll do, we'll
Right.
rattle through some of these questions if you want, unless Les has had enough of them. What
No,
we're doing, Les?
No, it's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, carry on, and I'll see you at the end. Okay.
Oh, right. Excellent. Yeah. We've
Okay.
done with questions. Thanks, Les. I didn't know whether there were any more, but there probably is. But let's be all right, because Les will be one that gets a bollocking for not getting them out. So we're not
No,
bothered.
it's fine.
And there it is. What we're saying. So we were going to talk about something, weren't we? We said we were going to come back to it, but it's kind of left me. Well,
Yeah.
I want to know, unless we've touched on it, I want to know about the sounds of the chain that you heard and the voice in your auntie's house. Is it Auntie Sissy, did you say? Walk us into that.
Okay. This is just what I've heard. This is what was told to me. Where granddad was a dab hander. Really, it was my mum's side. So he was really good carpenter. He was quite good, doing that. Auntie Sissy was quite well off, quite rich, if you like, but mad as a box of frogs. We all thought she was anyway. She'd do things like, sort of give you a box of chocolate soldiers, you open them up, and she'd say, "Ha, they're empty, they're all deserters." Things like that, and you're only a little kid, you're like, "What, really?" Anyway, she was had little, she was quite eccentric. Yeah, I love it. I love that now. But as a kid, I was like, "Well, honestly, yeah, I've eaten them all, Phil." And so, but a bit, quite eccentric. Lovely lady, but yeah, just a bit odd. Anyway, she went away for the weekend. She asked Granddad to come over to do some work. While Granddad was over there, he stayed over there at her house, and he left. He was meant to come back on Sunday, but he left on Saturday, late Saturday night. Anyway, Ida, my grandma, told me a story. And I was like, "Oh, what happened?" She said, "Well, because I was asking about ghosts, because it came about because I said, I remember saying to her, I pinched her skin once, and I said, it took ages to go back. She was old. And I was like, "Oh, you're old? Aren't you afraid of dying?" She said, "No, there's more to this than what you think." She said, "We do go on." I was like, got onto the subject. And she said, "Well, your granddad heard something strange over Auntie Sissy's, I was like, "Oh, what's that then?" Well, he was working over there, and he bedded down for Saturday night. As he did, he heard, it wasn't crying, the way that she described it. So this is like secondhand, but the way she described it, it was moaning coming from the cellar. Now the cellar was, as you go out of the I remember the house well, as you go out of the kitchen, there's a door leading out onto the garage, and it was like kind of in the garage floor, if you like. As you step out, it was a wooden cellar door, really, and that led down into the cellar. He said that it scared the bejesus out because he heard chains as well coming from down there, chains, and this moaning and like screams.
And this was a no nonsense man. This is your dad.
Yeah, no, this not dad. This is granddad. This is no, it's not granddad. This is granddad. Sorry, this is Ida, my grandma. That's her husband, right? So, because he went round to Aunt Sissy's to do the work. But he was also, yeah, he was not one taken to flights of fancy about crap like that.
But it frightened him.
Grandma, yeah, because I asked Grandma. Grandma said, "No, not Granddad." He was like, "No, your Granddad was very much like he'd bonk it on the nose. You know, it's one of them. You know, he was proper Birmingham. He was proper Birmingham. Yeah. So, yeah, and he fled the house. And he said, "I'll never go back there again." And he told Sissy, "You can get someone else to do the work." He said, "But what is down there?" So she said, "Oh, don't be so daft. You've been drinking, Edward. Been drinking. There's nothing down there." He said, "Well, why is it locked?" So they had a big row about it. And but yeah, Auntie Sissy never explained that. Never.
It's interesting,
No.
isn't it? And Rod kindly put in the chat that we were talking about orbs, and we've got about, I don't know, 8 or 9 minutes left. So the orb phenomena, the spheres of light, what I've termed the ILFs, the intelligent life forms. So do you think there's a connection then with the spheres of light and the cryptids, the spheres of light, and people seeing UFOs, even structured type UFOs? Do you think one comes before the other, or do you think that they accompany each of the phenomena? Are they the ingredient? Are they the kind of go-between between it all?
Yeah, I think in a way they're kind of like a precursor, Paul. I think I'm pretty sure they're like a precursor. A lot of investigators in the States also see them, and we do over here, and they are controlled. They're the most fascinating things to see. And they're kind of like they seem to be a green blue hue to them, a greeny blue hue. I was talking to a chap from Essex Paranormal, and he went to Rendlesham Forest, and I went to Rendlesham Forest after him, and I was going round, and I met a dog walker, and I was like sort of chatting to her, and I didn't want to go to the usual path where you see that UFO, which is like a statue UFO. I didn't want to do that because everyone's done that. I thought, oh no, it was well trodden. I wanted to find an old firing range that no one knew who built this firing range. It was just there. There's no sort of history to it. I tried digging around for it, but no one still knows if it was army or who made it. Anyway, I wanted to find it, so I found it. Quite an old place. Took video, went around the buildings. There was abandoned buildings, so I went around those. Anyway, on the way back, I saw this dog walker. I was chatting to her, and usually I'm kitted out with cameras, and I've got some really good cameras. So I've got one on my back, one on my chest. I've got another one I'm holding, and I've got my backup like kind of Canon SLR and blah blah blah. So I was talking to her, and the camera on the back picked up an orb, Paul, and this orb was identical to the chap at Essex UFO who went there previously. He looked at it and went, "Oh my God, really?" Under control. It was like kind of just moving in such a 90-degree shots.
All right, yeah,
this 90-degree shots.
Actually.
Yeah, which would, you know, I know lens flare, and you do get lens flare, but lens flare will only move if the lens of the camera is moving, or the light is coming through something which is maybe dappling it, maybe a tree, a branch, but otherwise it won't. Lens flare will stay static, and this wasn't as moving. I think it's a precursor, and I think it's maybe a it seems to be so often, and it often happens before ghost hunters find it, cryptid hunters find it, even as you said, UFO. And whenever you witness a UFO, you often see these orbs of light. It's almost, is it a way of conditioning us? Is it kind of like of it, right, you're over there, okay, Paul, right, I'm gonna bring it on, come on, that's it, bring it on. Is it that? I don't know, is it?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like the orbs. If you were a ghost hunter, and I hate saying the word ghost hunter because it's almost demeaning people who, to me, sounds like you're demeaning them. And I'm not, because I have full respect for people who are interested in that. But if they saw an orb, they'd perceive it as a spirit, wouldn't they? But you know, another type of researcher from another genre, another aspect of the unexplained would perceive it as something else. But maybe we're just dealing with the same thing. But these things seem to go through the full thread of the unexplained. And you talked about the pale blue. I mean, on East and North Yorkshire coast particularly, we see a lot of vibrant orange orbs. I've seen blue ones. We've seen them on walls, but vibrant orange. I mean, I'm not expecting you to have an answer to this, Phil. I haven't got one. But do you think there's any correlation with the colour and this kind of effect that it has on a person?
I do think there is a correlation with the colour. I do, yes. We do. We're predominantly programmed to see blue light. You know, we kind of like, you know, we'll naturally see blues and greens, but definitely blue is one of ours which just sticks out in our, you know, from taking in the reflected light source into our brain. It will just like the receivers take that in a lot clearer with blue light. I mean, I've had lots of UFO. I've seen one of the most stunning ones, but is a cigar shaped. Have you ever seen the cigar shaped ones, Paul?
We've seen all sorts of things up on cliff tops and on the walls. So yeah, I wouldn't. And I don't mean in detail. I'm not talking about Battlestar Galactica and windows.
No,
and things. Spheres of light, long sections of light. We've seen all things like that. Maybe
I find it. I was witness with two other guys in a car, and we were witness to a cigar shaped UFO coming over London. We were in a very high spot, right. And at that time we were smoking something we shouldn't be, but we were all together, three guys in a car, just relaxing, looking over the lights of London. But we were young, you know. But that's no excuse. But don't condone it. But we did it, and that's it. So. Anyway, I spotted this light coming towards us over from the lights of London. Yeah, I was in Beaconsfield at the time. Right. It's a high, but people in Beaconsfield know it. So it's a bit of a spot. So night time, and we saw this light coming towards us. I turned to my mate and I said, look at that. What's that? And he looked, is that, what is that? Is that a plane? He said, no. Anyway, the driver, there was two of us in the back seat. But don't get the wrong idea. There's two of us in the back seat, and there was a driver in the front. Okay, so it was just more leg room in the back. Okay, that's smart. Yeah. Anyway, but so as it flew past, it just went past so quickly. The driver in the front turned around. As he turned around, he didn't see it coming towards him. As he turned around, the whole of the car interior lit up this blue-green glow as it went past the rear window. And it was a Volkswagen Golf Mark II. We thought it was the bee's knees. It was actually the driver's mother's car. But it just lit up the whole of the car. And all you saw of us was us looking, our faces looking at each other, lit up. Just like boom. We instantly made statements, each of us. And the statements all were the same. We tried chasing it. We saw it go across into the woods. We went in a general direction of where it went, and that just led us to a transformer, Paul. You know, one of these electricity transformers, which has got a fence around it, a small one. It was that direction, and it led us to that.
But it's quite a moment. It don't matter what you were doing, does it? You've just painted a picture now of all of you sort of glowing up in this light. Yeah, and that's a great story. Almost to finish on. We've got about 2 minutes left. Okay. Anybody wanting to contact Phil Kotval, where can they contact you?
I've got an email address. I use cot.pj. It's Kilo Oscar Tango Papa Juliet @hotmail.co.uk. Okay. I've also got YouTube, which is Dogman TP Hunting.
Oh, there he goes. Let's put it up. Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Les. I've also got TikTok, which is TP Hunting on TikTok, and also the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast, but I don't update that very much. I'm pretty lazy with that, really. But if you go to Dogman TP Hunting, you see all the videos, and you can always contact me on there anyway, because my email's on there on the links, and TikTok and everything else on links.
And well, that's brilliant. And if you've enjoyed listening to Phil, let's see if we can get his subscriber count up, people, and give him a little bit of support. Yeah, it's been great talking to you, Phil. I've not had much to do.
Thank you.
No, and
Thank you.
Les,
Yeah, brilliant.
welcome.
And no, great show, guys. And I know a lot of people in the chat have enjoyed it tonight. Thank you very much. I'll end with what Zeno has said, Paul. Zeno says Bobster for his own DVD.
Do you know? He's down there now, Zeno. But you're absolutely spot on. And shall I tell you something? A guy contacted me and he'd done a load of little caricatures of him. He'd done some work for Viz. And he'd done some caricatures of Bobster. I'll have to dig them out and post them up. And yeah, they look brilliant. So yeah, make a little cartoon strip. He's funny, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, that's it. We are entirely out of time tonight. Thanks, Phil, for coming onto the show on the Truth Proof live stream.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been fantastic. So from me, it's good night.
Yeah, good night from me.
Thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome, and thank you, Alison.
Thank you,
and
Alison.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Alison.
Bye-bye.